High ball in the Rayner direction. Terrific mark. Wheels and goes. And that is good. First blood Lions. Now Kai Lohmann gets a really good look at it and slams it through.
Doherty's kick smothered. Cameron swoops. Cameron scores.
Fat side, Hipwood or Rayner! Huge elimination final climb.
From Brisbane. That sets up victory and a semi-final date with Greater Western Sydney.
The Brisbane Lions Fancast is back after the week one of the finals, elimination final against Carlton. Got the job done in, I guess you could say, typical Brisbane Lions fashion. Got the win. That's the most important thing. We've got a date locked in with GWS on the weekend for a semi-final. And we all know how that went last time. How's it going to go this year? Let's wait and see. But let's have a look back at the week just gone. We had 3 games for the Brisbane Lions over the weekend, including the big fixture, Saturday night at the Gabba. We also had the VFL and the AFLW all playing on the Saturday. We went 3 from 3, hit the trifecta. A good day for the club. Let's get into it. I was at the Gabba. Patrick, you were in your lounge room watching the footy. How did you see it from the comfort of your house?
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. It's sort of the only way to go about it. First half was fantastic. I thought the defense was so good. And then, a little bit stressful, but not super stressful, I felt. A little bit tense.
I mean, the most pleasing thing, aside from the fact that we obviously put scores on the board and, we all know 60 points to nothing by about, halfway, 3/4 of the way through the second quarter. But that stat that we spoke about maybe last week before, the tackle count we haven't really been dominating in. Our tackle and pressure was well up in the first half, which was probably the most pleasing thing to see, I guess, in that first half of footy. And very much like opening round against Carlton, we played our best footy. The footy that we know would beat just about anybody on any given day, just have not been able to hold on to it for 4 quarters. And, we're coming up against a team that we let slip just a few weeks ago. So we're going to have to amp it up yet again because there's going to be a different kettle of fish this weekend.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny pattern over the last month of football or 5 weeks or whatever it is. You can look at it in a larger sense over the course of the season. But to get out to a lead and then watch it be sort of slowly reeled back in was, probably giving a lot of people cause for concern. As I said, definitely not sitting very comfortably. But, on the whole, Carlton kicked very straight. We kicked straight and then not straight. And, Jack Payne can't seem to buy, a lucky charm of any sorts. And I think, it's funny, we didn't concede a point while he was on the field. So, if it's any indication of the massive amount of improvement he brings to our team, that's there. But finals footy is here, and 3 of the games were, pretty good, and one of the games was an absolute blowout that probably I think we both enjoyed. I mean, to be honest, I enjoyed seeing the Bulldogs get slapped, but also then had the fear of Hawthorn put into me. And then unfortunately I wasn't able to watch the Sydney game because I was working, but was keeping track of that as best as I could, and that seemed like an absolute banger. So.
Absolutely, it was. That was an absolutely cracking game, and for all money, it looked like we were going to be playing Sydney this week coming up, but they pulled it out in the last few minutes with an Amati goal, and well, that's all she wrote. So we got GWS. Let's not look too far forward though. Changes for this week. Obviously, all the questions were going to be about Carlton and the side they were going to put out on the park. The changes that we sort of forecast were the ones that happened. So Noz held his spot. McKenna stayed in the team. Sharp and Joyce got moved out for Starcevic and Jack Payne. And I liked that team. I didn't mind McKenna as the sub. He didn't have the greatest impact by the time he came on, and maybe there's a question there of him or Bruce moving forward, but we will get to that a little bit later on. All in all, I liked the team we put out in the park, and it was never going to change too much depending on what Carlton did. They obviously made their 6 changes. The one that was probably the most baffling, aside from putting out injury-prone players, was the omission of Alex Chincotta, which I'm sure when Dane Zorko saw that went, okay, today's going to be my day, and it turned out it was. And Tom de Koning is the sub for them, which was a bit of a surprise because equally as when Jack Payne went off the field, TDK came on and the momentum definitely switched.
Yeah, the Carlton changes were like initially scary, and then when you kind of looked at them within the context of themselves, like it's a bit like, wow.
And then you look
on here, like
you look at the impact that the 6 players had, and negligible.
Yeah, like, you know, when you have that many kind of hamstrings and stuff, you just sort of like Chera's one hamstring away from bloody retirement at this stage, and like, you know, Doherty was there. I don't really understand the romantic element of like, wow, an injured player's coming back. What's good for football? It's like, I understand. Yes, if you come back from chemotherapy, it's kind of a big deal, but it was just an ACL. So I suppose we're going to have 5 fantastic football stories next year. I
think it's just a culmination of like, the man's been through a lot. There's no denying that. 3 ACLs, 2 bouts with testicular cancer, and just the fact that he came back within 26 weeks, like record breaking, coming back from a knee. And I'm sure every Carlton fan and footy fan had their heart in their mouth, like any time Sam Doherty went near the ball. And he was up around stoppage as well. He wasn't just like floating off the half back looking for easy kicks to ease himself back into it. He's up around stoppage. Obviously kicked a great goal in the third or last quarter, whenever it was. I mean, all in all, I'm happy for him. I felt for sure the fact that they rushed him back was a sign that this was probably going to be it for him. This was either going to be his last game or his last couple of games.
You reckon?
Well, I mean, if you're rushing him back 26 weeks after a knee, it sort of seems like we need you because we think you're in our best team, but also you deserve to go out on your own terms here at the same time. But Vossi made it.
Seems like a lot of bloody effort to get there just for one thing. Like, you know.
Well,
yeah.
I'm sure in Sam Doherty's mind, he thought we're going all the way for a flag here. So if he can help, he wants to do that. Vossi made it perfectly clear in his presser afterwards that he'll be playing on next year. So it just sort of, I don't know. Their selection was obviously has raised a bunch of questions, not just from footy fans, but the media since then, just going, what were you
said
thinking?
That it would, because you said it would be the case of just like, you know, they made too many changes or made not enough. But the thing is like, if they didn't make all the changes to bring in their good players, they would have not had a chance anyway. They wouldn't have even gotten relatively close. So they did all that they could. I think de Koning being the sub and the amount of impact he had, although like contextualized within the idea of Payne going off and him sort of just like him and Pitnet battering ramming Oe in the second half and stuff like that. Like really the case of 2 halves with a lot of our players. I thought some players that were fantastic in the first half were near anonymous in the second, and other players were kind of a bit more in the game, but in a slightly less helpful way, if I can say that. Maybe talking about certain individuals, but yeah, on the whole, very much, I don't think we learned a thing about our team.
No, it just cemented what we already knew, that our best is very good, our worst is bottom 4 tier gear, and inaccuracy continues to plague us. I guess it is just, it's a pattern of behaviour, it is a habit now, you know, the way these games are unfolding. Ever since opening round, we got run down, you know, you can see it back as, you know, the Geelong game, extremely inaccurate, 3 goals, 14 or whatever it is we ended up kicking that could have put us in a winning position. The first game against Melbourne where we blew them out by 10 goals and it ended up being a 20-point margin in the end. You know, various games throughout the year, you can point to a whole host of them. And whilst this game wasn't particularly inaccurate, 14-15 is pretty, like, I guess, excusable. It's the exact same score that Hawthorn ended up on Friday night. No one's talking about their inaccuracy, but it also hasn't been an ongoing issue for them. So I understand that context as well. But I guess it's just the moment where we get out to that huge lead, suddenly the momentum stops, the pressure comes on, we start to panic, our inaccuracy just goes through the roof. Logan Morris missing from the top of the square, compounded almost in like 30 seconds to 60 seconds later by Zach Bailey just absolutely ballsing up that shot from the goal square. Yeah, Kai Lohmann probably need to release that handball half a second to a second earlier. But it's just that stuff that the panic and the groans set in across the stadium. We're like, oh no, here we go again. Thankfully, Cal Archie steadied not too long after that, and we did hold on. We held them at arm's length, and Chris Fagan said in the press conference he never really thought Carlton were going to get back into that game, and there was a couple of cheap 50s to flatter them a little bit towards the end of it, but it can't be overstated that they definitely outscored us by a big way in the second half. What was it, 31-79 or something in the back half or something? 71.
31-71, but I think two of their goals, junk time free kick goals, we entirely stopped. So, if you boil that one down, it's sort of not as bad as it kind of could have been. But, that's the way things are. I think you said it pretty well. No one was talking about Hawthorn, and if you take out the two, I think they got, 4 back-to-back free kicks and 250 metres to score 2 goals in the last 2 minutes. And it's like, if they hadn't had those, then it would have basically been the same score as the Hawthorn and Bulldogs game. And I think, as you said before, I thought that the Bulldogs got pretty handily put away. In the end, the margin's not as good as it should have been. But I think going into the game, it was so were you kind of just sitting there being a bit like, everyone's saying we're going to win by 6 goals?
Man, if I heard one more person say that we were just going to walk this game in, and Carlton is 0 chance, they're making up the numbers, Brisbane's going to wipe the floor with them. I was so nervous leading up into this game. I just had serious doubt in my head, and a lot of that was due to the uncertainty around Carlton and the team that was going to take the field. And once Curnow was ruled out on sort of Wednesday night, Thursday, I felt a little bit better about it. But still, just the uncertainty with the team they were going to put out there. And, we know Carlton spent a good portion of the season second on the ladder. Yeah, their last 10 weeks have been pretty gross, but that's largely due to the field they've had. They haven't had a top 23 that they'd like to have access to. So I was definitely nervous, and I think that's years of conditioning lately as well of, our history in September and what we've been able to do, and I guess the month leading up into this September as well, where we just haven't really had a huge confidence-boosting win. But we got the job done, and now I'm filled with that immense sense of dread again leading up into this weekend.
So ride the wave. Would it be cruel to say that Charlie Curnow had a better final series this year than he did last year?
Yes, that would be cruel.
Because I think that's that's one for the brain explosion. But definitely good not having him there. And I think if Payne had gone down and he'd been floating around, could have been a little bit of trouble. So yeah, Carlton definitely a weird one for the season. In hindsight, pretty lucky to be playing finals, all things considered, because I think at the time we looked at some of their early games in the season, they were lucky to be where they were, and they sort of we sort of had, for us, one dip at the beginning of the season, whereas they seem to have 3 dips throughout the season. Yep. They didn't start particularly strong. They just found themselves doing quite well. They weren't playing well. They only beat Richmond by about 4 points, and they got given the game against Fremantle. So it's sort of, they were really, really mean to Fremantle, weren't
they? Yeah.
Oh, who cares? I don't like Fremantle either. So, did you guess that one?
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, you think about the other options that we could have had coming into that final, potentially Fremantle, potentially Collingwood, and I think both of those games would have been much tougher than the one we got against Carlton. So we are lucky in that respect. And once again, the Chincotta omission is just simply mind-baffling. Owies being suspended as well obviously helps because he's probably their most dangerous forward, because the other Durden did sweet FA.
Motlop as well.
Motlop did nothing, and aside from Orazio Fantasia pulling a goal out of his ring, he was fairly quiet as well.
Didn't even really know he was on the field, to be honest, until that happened.
Yeah.
That was one of the things, I suppose, them being so far down, they were just able to just take pot shots and they were going through. So, 11 goals, 5 sort of speaks to itself from them. But, it was frustrating because I think everyone was hoping for them to be, scoreless going into half time.
Yeah, it would have been funny.
And then a defensive mistake gave the ball to kind of Cripps. And, I think after being so solid in terms of runs of goals, I think it was before the GWS game where we had conceded the fewest runs of 4 goals. It's now becoming quite frequent. Because we've obviously done it twice. I think we said against GWS in that game where it kind of came up, and then we did it obviously against Collingwood and then Essendon, and then we did it here. It's just a little bit. Can we just tighten up a little bit?
Yeah.
Quite like that. But Yeah, the first half, like some good performers. Zorko was obviously like amazing in the first half. I thought Jared Berry was really good in the first half, but he faded into the game. I think he got like 16 of his 20 disposals in the first half.
Yeah.
Whether that's because he went with, we've seen Dunkley really make a mess of Cripps in previous games, and Cripps definitely didn't allow that to phase him in this game, despite the heavy lead in the first half. He was sort of more or less doing everything for them. And very much the rock battle. Like Owie was fantastic in the first half, and then Pitnet seemed to lift. And I mean, put Pitnet at full forward. That guy can kick the ball arrow straight.
Yeah, crazy, hey.
2 goals in a minute from the big man with the beak. So yeah, the Holland boys were there. I don't really like them. They kind of look a bit ill. I don't know. They look kind of like grubby kids. You'd sort of not want to go near in a restaurant.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ollie Hollands eventually went to Zorko in the back half and quieted his influence. Probably too little, too late there as well. The interesting choice was Chera running with Neil straight off the bat, which I guess allowed Hewitt to have the game that he did. He was probably one of Carlton's best ons. But, you know, a bloke that's had 5 hamstrings in 12 months, you're going to get him to run with, you know, one of the top 5 players in the league. It's an interesting choice, but sure. It was just another interesting choice in a series of interesting choices from Carlton. As you said, Cripps was amazing. Like I really, really like Patrick Cripps as a footballer. And, you know, 2022 aside, and the circumstances in which he won that Brownlow medal, he's genuinely one of my favourite players. And he just the way, especially his last month, he's been doing everything to get his team into finals and to make a charge. He's been doing it basically on his own. And, you know, I reckon Michael Voss must love coaching Paddy Cripps because there are so many similarities.
Is there really all that much you'd have to do to coach him?
Not really.
Just go and do what you do, and it'll probably work. Aside from that, not a lot to kind of pick for those with a perverse angle of looking at Wiedering and Harris Andrews. I thought when we were good, Harris Andrews was great. When we were not putting pressure on the ball, he was obviously missing his buddies.
Yep.
And Wiedering very much the same. You know, I probably didn't get 2 goals kicked on him, to be honest, but he might have had we kicked straighter. I don't really know. I can't exactly sort of think of it, but definitely a game that was played. Good to see some of our young blokes in their first final contributing as well.
Yeah, big time.
We obviously had, the forgotten Will Ashcroft playing his first game to go with Kai Lohmann and
Logan. Logan's pack marking was great. Obviously, Kai's energy around the ball. He obviously hit the scoreboard in the end, and Will had a great game. Like, what was it? He had 20 touches in the end, but 9 of them led to scores. So,
and he's so clean.
Yeah,
like so clean around the ball. It's a bit of a shame that Logan Morris completely butchered that shot from 10 meters out. Because if he ends the game with 3 goals, and you're just sitting there going, okay. Yeah. He's done basically what Fletcher did last year in the first final. And just shown up, gone, okay, I'm a threat, watch out.
And even Fletch, I ran into Adrian Fletcher at halftime actually, and I approached him and said, mate, I'd love to be able to shake your hand, and sat and had a chat to him for a bit and had a beer, and I said, look, Jasper, he's doing well. He's won all his one-on-ones. That's the one thing I did notice about Jasper. He was, fairly quiet disposal-wise, but he won every single one-on-one that came his way. And Adrian's that's the one thing he's taught him. If nothing else, you got to win your one-on-ones. And I think Jasper's been pretty consistent at that over the year.
Well, we heard that leading into Froggy's 200, where I think he said early on in his career, he was really focusing on just winning his one-on-ones and getting to the contests that he was going to impact. And then as he got a little bit older, it kind of released the shackles of him wanting to go to more contests to impact more.
Yep.
Even if he only won 80% of them, he was getting to more, but because he'd had that original mentality of winning all of his contests, he was winning them all anyway. So he was just getting to more contests to win. And I think, Fletcher's building, it's not... I think he cops a bit of unfair criticism just because he probably lacks a bit of, wow factor in terms of what he does. But, I mean, if your game is built on wow factor and that doesn't happen, then people are critical anyway, and you get into situations where where Zach Bailey would have a quiet game if he doesn't do something like outrageous, but you would rather them do the consistent thing, or the simple thing. And when you see a guy like Zach Bailey completely miss his foot in the goal square, his ability then to go and do the simple things right to make amends following that, I think was not impressive. It was expected, but because it's Zach Bailey, it's vaguely impressive because it's not always expected. So that was a good sign. Zach Bailey's third quarter, amidst Carlton kind of coming back into the game, I thought was actually pretty good. That one massive hash aside. Yeah, I thought so too. Talk about Fletcher, but I like Fletcher. We know that I like Fletcher, and I think he's going to be an absolutely fantastic servant for the team. And learning from someone like Cal Archie, not going to do you any harm, I can tell you that. Obviously, Rayner had big impacts across the game as well. Now, I literally just changed my votes this morning. He's just missed out on a vote, but I thought he was obviously very impressive. It was a fairly typical Cam Rayner game. He had some flashes of brilliance, ended up on just under 15 disposals, hit the scoreboard, took a hanger, did some really good bits, busted tackles, didn't have a four-quarter performance, but that's Cam Rayner. Starcevic, amazing. Leicester, great game. And I just want two moments that really stuck out to me with Joe. His first set shot, our second goal, he was out on the 50 on, that angle, and I think everyone in the stadium expected him to just wheel out on that left. But he just ran straight and kicked the ball over the man on the mark and went straight through, and that was just really unusual for Joe, that he didn't wheel out at all and get any sort of arc. That was strange. And the second moment... Someone's been practicing. Well, that's so weird, though. That doesn't seem like the sort of thing that you would tell Joe to practice. Can I guess what the second one is? I mean, I think we can all guess what the second one is. It's the dying moments of the game where he's down at centre half back with a chase down tackle applying pressure, gets the Carlton bloke to kick it out on the full. That's not your job as a key forward, and the whole stadium basically stood up and clapped for that, because you've got the game sorted. Your centre half forward, who's got no business doing this, was absolutely amazing, and I think that the crowd really appreciated it. His teammates really appreciated it. You saw everyone get around him. Just to see that act of desperation and stuff in the dying moments of the game, that's done. It's dusted. And that was really, really impressive. I'll give a shout out for a 2.5 because that wasn't the one I was going to guess. Oh, really? On centre wing, he kind of wigged out one of their blokes with the ball by corralling a handball, and then they just booted the ball straight to us. And it was hey, that was really smart. Good job spacing. Yeah, he Joe was good. Eric had moments. We'll get to Eric a little bit later, obviously, because he is the whipping boy, and questions about him coming back from that groin and stuff. I still thought he had a really good game, and it's the same stuff we always talk about. His work up the ground, getting to contests, linking, all that sort of stuff was still there. Took a great mark, and he did affect the scoreboard in the end. So it's just he made a few missed kicks, and then footy's a funny game, because there's situations where I think people talk about him stifling a bit of momentum and stuff like that, and that might come up in the questions. But Charlie Cameron does the same thing, but no one complains. Yeah. So, it's either sometimes you go fast to make the wrong decision, or you take too long and make a different decision that doesn't quite work out. And both times you'd want it to end up in a goal, but neither times it does. So, I don't know. His kicking was a bit off, but 2 goal assists. Including looping handball to Joe in the goal square where everyone else is getting involved in melee. Yeah, so that was absolutely hilarious to watch on the broadcast, because they were kind of focused in on the melee. Yeah. And then this gigantic ball kind of came across the foreground of the the screen. Yeah. And I'm just oh, fuck, what's happened here? And then it just zooms out to Joe with the ball in the goal square. But, Hippie presented well. He dished the handball to Cal to kind of make the game safe. Yeah. Or to, wrestle back a bit of that momentum. I think he was probably in best position for the Zach Bailey one minutes before, where Lohman probably should have gone the rugby pass backwards. rather than straight ahead. But Grug wanted to give to his friend, which is, they could write a book about that.
Grug gives to his friends. I'm sure there probably is one out there.
It's still not up there with Grug Goes to the Playground, which is my favourite children's book of all time. It's so macabre.
Yeah, other than that, McKenna as the sub came on. I still think, it's a tough one because at the moment we just sort of see him as an insurance policy because there's no way GWS is going to let Zorko run around and do whatever he likes next week. So that sort of tells me that I kind of want McKenna in the team in some aspect, if that is the case. But, Bruce made a very good case for himself in the VFL as well. So, if there's going to be any changes, I think that will be the one. But yeah, I think especially with Darcy Jones rolling around, because Starcevic will have his hands tied up with Toby Green, we need someone on Darcy Jones who has got us both games this year. And the question remains over Jack Payne. Now, it's 10:15 on Monday morning. No update as yet. The last we heard is that they're fairly optimistic around Jack Payne and his knee. Fague said, at a pinch they could have put him back on the ground on the weekend, but didn't really feel the need to push the risk when we're 10 goals up. So at this stage, it's a genuine 50-50. But, man, he's injury prone.
He is. I thought he got concussed when it happened, because he kind of got a chop to the head and then sort of went limp and landed kind of splayed leg.
Oh, when you see him grabbing his knee, you're like, not again.
Yeah. But, that's sort of the big question. I think Starcevic has got this insane ability to somehow play taller than he kind of deserves to. It's been something he's kind of added to his game, which has been really impressive. Didn't talk about Noah Answorth, but he was there and he did a really good job in the first quarter kind of hoovering up those second balls. So that's great. And that's kind of exactly the sort of thing that you would want against. I mean, everyone knows where the ball's going. It's going on Hogan's head.
Yeah.
And he's going to bring it to ground. And if you've got a crummer, a really defensively minded crummer like Answorth, because ground balls in the defensive 50 is something that we struggle with consistently. So,
well, the good thing about Saturday is, despite the fact that we were towing them up on the scoreboard, they were winning the inside 50. So our defensive unit as a whole was absolutely killing it in that first half.
It was so good. Every time I was just like, no point. Not even no goal, no point. No point. And see the ball sailing out for stoppages and stuff like that was good. And yeah, Owie was absolutely unplayable in that first half until they started being mean to him. And also he got angry, which is good. We love that.
Yep.
He had some swear words come out onto live TV.
Lovely.
Not so much big, happy, friendly Owie.
It'll be interesting this week as well, because this will be the first time this year that Oscar McInerney and Briggs get to go up against each other, because obviously we had Briggs that just did a number on Darcy Fort the first time, and then Oscar had his coloured lowers by bloody Lockie Keefe. So this will be the first time these two actually go head-to-head, and, Briggs is a big boy.
We need someone to make a boxing promotion, like Big O versus Big Briggs. Anything more about the game? Not
so much. Like I said, a lot of it will come down to the questions, just the nature of the comebacks, the fade outs, whether it's mental, whether it's the pressure, whether it's, whatever it is, we will get to it when we get to the questions, because it's a question on everyone's lips as Lions fans, and I guess as footy fans. It's just what is the go? What the hell is happening so consistently with this team that they're so brilliant? Win the first quarters by however many you like across the year, but then our second halves just, oof, yeah. And knowing that we're coming up against a team that took full advantage of it, 6 weeks ago? Yeah, not even.
Yeah, I think at least in that game, maybe it's a master plan to kind of go, all right, well, done the first quarters. So this Carlton game will really focus on the first half. As GWS game, we'll do the first 3 quarters. Then a preliminary final 4-quarter performance and cruise it in the grand final. Maybe that's the master plan all along.
Maybe.
It's just simply a game of quarterly progression. As apparently most business people would tell you. Says me knowing fuck all about business. But
It seems like a bold strategy. All right, well, before we get into questions, and we'll chat about the VFL and the AFLW as well, let's get to some votes. Thanks to hoponbrewtours.com.au. Book your half for a full day tour right now with Matt and Joss and see some of the best breweries and learn about the brewing process in Gold Coast and Brisbane. As I said, honourable mention to Cam Rayner, who's literally just missed out on a vote, maybe 10 minutes before recording, because I was struggling with it and had to reflect on it more and more, and so my 3-2-1 has landed thusly, and so Zorko the 3, Klug the 2, and Ashcroft the 1. So midfield,
interesting
midfield gear. I thought, Zorko, speaks for itself. He's just been doing what he's been doing basically all year. Very similarly to how we've spoken about Neil this year and how he's adding, disposal damage, and his kicking efficiency is really amped up this year. McCluggage's tackling has gone through the roof, especially in the last, 4-6 weeks. He ended up leading all comers with 8 tackles this week, and once again, his first half was absolutely brilliant. He's coming along nicely. Just score involvement's coming up the wazoo, and Ashcroft, as we sort of touched on before as well, just one of his better games. He's building, he's just come back at the right time that his form is building coming into this final series, and he didn't have a huge amount of disposals, but what he did have were damaging and were very, very clean.
Very good. Very good. I don't really know what I'm doing, but let's do this.
Sure.
I'm going to Cam Rayner the 3.
Sure. That makes up for me not giving him
for me, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to disagree.
No, it's just in terms of impact and moments and stuff like that, exactly kind of what you need in a final. Good to see him come back from his slumber that he's had over the past 4 weeks. So, yeah, Rayner 3, Zorko the 2, and I've gone for California Archie for the 1.
Sure.
Just because so crucial at times, and just, moments were really important. So, Cal Archie, the 1 vote. Just finals are definitely a thing of moments. I don't know if you remember our talk about the prelim last year against Carlton. It included the greatest hits montage of just where we were absolutely smashing them.
That's right.
Definitely one of my favourite segments we've ever done, where I had everything written down. Quarter 1, it just ran off. And, moments in football are just so pivotal. So that's how I've gone.
Lovely. I like it. All right, well, when we head to the VFL, that was very much in danger of being a very similar prospect. So got off to a pretty good start against Williamstown. I think we kicked the first 3 goals, 4-5. So we're about 30 points up, which is where we love to be in any sort of game. Williamstown pegged it back, and their third quarter was ridiculous, and it was largely thanks to this Brodie McLaughlin fellow who ended up with 6 goals. But our last quarter, absolutely brilliant, put on the best part of 50 points. Harry Sharp with 3 goals in that last quarter. So got the win at Brighton Homes Arena, which sets up another prelim for the Brisbane Lions. We're going to come up against, it might even be Werribee again, which is going to be...
It's Werribee.
So we know how that one went last time. They won't have Sean Manor this year, obviously, because he'll be too busy playing the prelim for Geelong. But...
we won't have Reece Matheson or Daniel Rich.
That's true. That is true. So looking at Jared Lyons, classic Jared Lyons game, 11 clearances, 39 touches. Didn't hit the scoreboard in the way he'd hoped to, 0 goals, 3. Dev, a huge game, 35 touches, 11 clearances. Jackson Pryor had a really good game, and Darragh Joyce looked so much better after all that AFL exposure, being back in the VFL team. And who knows, he may still have a part to play in the AFL final series coming up as well. Bruce, as I said, had a really great game coming back. He ended up with 6 tackles, 12 touches, 1 goal, 1. So he's very much put himself in the frame to have a spot come finals time. Will McLaughlin, 3 goals as well. Darcy Fort just keeps on keeping on. And I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe gets looked at from other clubs around the AFL that need a ruckman and maybe on the move, depending. Brandon Ryan, 4 goals. He had a great game as well. And as I said, Harry Sharp with a huge last quarter. Ended up with 3 goals. So big win for the Twos.
Kyle Dunkley out with concussion?
Yeah, he got cooked.
Okay, yeah, because I think in one disposal he's normally better than that.
Yeah.
Or more prolific than that. So, yeah, good on the fellas. You know?
Strange seeing Blake Coleman run around for Williamstown.
Yeah, I think I said like the other week, might have been off air, that it was just funny like looking through VFL teams and seeing like random players that you're like, oh, look at that guy. Oh, look at that guy. And they're all, old ex-AFL players and stuff like that. Kind of funny, fun little watch. But yeah, Blake Coleman.
Williamstown had Aidan Bonner running around at like fullback as well, who he just looks so... And Riley Collier-Dawkins, who had a few years at Richmond as well. So Aidan Bonner just looks so much bigger than everyone else out there.
Yeah. Well, hindsight, so got the win there. And the sharpshooting from the Seagulls, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. 18-5 versus 19-16. Yeah.
Love that for us.
The girls, they got back to their winning ways after an obviously very disappointing performance last week against the Roos, but they were back to their best against Melbourne at Casey Fields. Ali Anderson broke the record for disposals, also 7 tackles, 7 clearances, so she ended up with 43, including 28 kicks, 15 handballs. She's just, at this stage, like even though we got towed up last week, would have had to register a vote in the MVP, so she'd have to be up there. Dax kicked 3. Sophie Conway had a cracking game as well. Taylor Smith and Ruby Spark were pretty handy up forward as well. So good to see them back playing the footy that we know our girls team can play. So I will endeavour to give the girls more airtime after the men's final series wraps up, because I'm a big fan, and I know I'm sort of just paying it lip service at the moment, but I do watch every game, and I'm looking forward to paying a bit more attention and delving right into the girls this year.
Yeah, good result for the club all ways around. I did hear about the disposal record being broken. Yeah, good to get a win over Melbourne, particularly because they stole $1 million from us last year. So, bastards. Like they needed it.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe they did. All right, well, that all being said, changes for next week against GWS. They are probably going to get Toby Bedford back, which is obviously a pretty good get for them. Sort of touched on it already, the idea that maybe Bruce can come back into the team. My guess is it'll be straight swap for McKenna if that does happen, and depending on Jack Payne's fitness, it'll be Dara Joyce coming back in for that if it pans out that way.
Yeah, I think took the words out of my mouth. There's not really going to be too much change, and if it is, it's going to be like for like. The only one is whether we want kind of like a attacking threat or a defensive. Well, not safety. He's not really safe, is he? A defensive guy, on the bench, and I think in terms of our strategy of getting out into a lead, probably lends itself more to having a defensive guy as just
yeah. So, this Jack Payne thing is a big one, I guess, because we know the way GWS manipulate to try, like as David King said, he's never seen a team sole focused on a key forward like this since Wayne Carey days. So they try and manipulate it, and they showed footage of it last time we played GWS of how they try and give Hogan space on Harris that he can go and leap at mark. So having Jack Payne in there would be just so much better to have that big body, and then Cadman is then stuck with Harris Andrews rather than a Leicester or a Joyce or something as well. So it is a big get, but you don't want to play Jack Payne if he's going to be hobbling around either.
No, but I think he's so big, hey? Like, when he was walking off the field, I was just like, far out, that dude is huge. I feel like Kingy said that if you had Matthew Lloyd in the background, just a single tear would have been rolling down his face. So make of that what you will. Yeah, EWS, just kick straight and we'll probably win. That's sort of my assessment, is like, if we kick straight, we probably win. Yeah,
and I mean, it's a bold strategy.
Stick it in the goal hole.
One we haven't been able to adhere to so far. Yeah. And we didn't put ourselves in a winning position the first time we came up against them down there. We were certainly in the contest at halftime, but then they just blew it out. We definitely had ourselves in a winning position, 4 or 5 weeks ago when we played them last, and butchered it pretty royally. So, and it was said across the broadcasters, anytime sort of pressure and heat gets applied to us, that's when our inaccuracy really starts to shine through. And if there's one thing we know against GWS is they're going to bring speed, they're going to bring pressure, and that's how they've got us the last couple of times. So what have we learned? Let's find out. I'm going off the 2022. Melbourne smacked us around in the home and away season. Then come finals, we beat them. Last year, we smacked Collingwood around in the home and away season, and then they got us in the one that mattered. So I'm hoping we can go with that.
I like it. Stick with that. Yeah, it's hard to kind of preview a game you previewed about 3 weeks ago and just go, don't do the thing that you did at the time that lost you the game and do the other stuff that should have been winning the game. That's the team talk. It's why I'm not a coach.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier on, I'm filled with dread for this one. I'm not giving us a huge amount of a shot in this one, just due to our form and GWS's form, the way they've played us against us. I've got very little confidence. It's about a 70-30 for me.
Well, GWS cocked up a lead, so at least shoes on a different sort of foot.
Sure.
We're both wearing the same shoes. Something like that. Let's have some questions, hey?
Let's have some questions. Thanks to Crisp Communications, crispcoms.co. If you want to get yourself your free Brisbane Lions Fancast sticker, you can do that through our website. But if you need marketing for your business, whether that's email marketing, digital marketing, flyers, you've got your own podcast, Crisp Communications will absolutely sort you out. All right, questions. Let's go to the audio questions first. We've got a couple of these, and feel free at any time to send it through our speak pipe, and you can find that link at our website as well if you want to, and get involved in the show. First one comes from Sean.
Hey guys, Sean here. Big fan of the podcast. Look forward to it every week, so appreciate what you guys both do. Just having a thought with regards to our third quarter fade. Do you think that's a symptom of our perceived or so-called mental weakness? Like, is our inability to concede 5 goals in a row when we're seemingly dominating a whole game related to our problems with inaccuracy? I don't know. To me, it seems like it's between the ears, which I know is a term that gets thrown around a lot, but I really feel that could be the case. And how do you get around that? How can everyone get on Uncle Joe's level, basically? Yeah, that's my question. Appreciate what you guys do. Cheers, Sean.
Well, Sean, that is one hell of a question, and I know it's a question on everyone's lips. So just to double down on that, Neil on Twitter says he loved the way we settled the game in the middle of the third quarter. And other people, let me just scroll real quick because I know there was another one. Derek, just watch the replay again. That was a pretty comfortable win. That third quarter, Blues scored 3 goals, 1 to our 1 goal 5 with 3 minutes 50 left on the clock. We were winning 99-51. Then there's some charitable 50-metre penalties that helped the Blues out a little bit. So, bit of a mixed bag when it comes to the third quarters. But the evidence is there. It is clearly a habit, is a pattern of behaviour that has been happening since opening round on and off. That early lead, third quarter, the pressure comes and we seem to go into our shells a little bit. So how do we overcome it? No idea. But we've left it a little bit late to try and figure it out as well.
Kind of the $1 million question at the moment. I think there's an element of us, we're not a super high pressure team across the whole game. But there's definitely an element of us trying to utilise the slowing down of the play and the kick mark to get our hands on the ball to kind of arrest the momentum. And we've just been struggling to do that. I think I said a few weeks ago to find the one mark or the one kick.
Yep.
And particularly when it's like when Zorko's being closed down on, there's a kind of a lack of options or a lack of willingness to kind of take that responsibility to arrest that momentum. It does happen, and there were definitely times where it did happen in the GWS game. I think the second quarter we wrestled momentum back quite well. Although, that was in the second quarter, so third quarter a bit different. But I don't know. I want them to fix it, and I don't know how they're going to do it. They just have to play harder, more, and then that'll all be good. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, it's just a tough one whether this third quarter is it a case of game management and is it a mental thing in the players that they've gone, oh, we've got this sorted, and subconsciously they take the foot off the pedal a little bit. Is it a case of, the team on the other end going, oh no, we need to get back into this, and they're rolling the dice a little bit? Is it a case of us literally just out of gas, out of fitness? I don't really know the answer to that. It could be a combination of all those. It could be more one than the other, but it is definitely happening all too often, and we know what happened last time. We saw it against GWS, we saw it against Collingwood, we saw it against Essendon, we saw it again on the weekend. So there's definitely a habit.
I think a big frustration with it is because in a lot of those games there's been a lot to play for the opposition, and there's also a lot to play for us, but there's an element of not playing like there's a lot to play for sometimes. But I think you might have nailed it there with a little bit of the rolling of the dice, because I think there's so many sort of structural elements and kind of trying to take out the variables in a game of football, which sounds insane and like it's impossible, because it is, because it's invariably a variable game. But when you're 60 points down or 48 points down or whatever Carlton were, you're sitting there going, well, we got nothing to lose, so let's do all the risky stuff. And if it pays off, and then you know, that momentum and that like ability to go, well, nothing's going wrong for us here. There was some absolutely garbage plays where the ball sort of just rolled around and ended up in like the deep 50 somehow. And you're like, well, how did it get there? And then they kick a goal and you're like, no one disposed of the ball properly. It just bounced all the way from half back to half forward, and then they kicked the goal. So less of that. Hopefully, well, I mean, I don't think anyone really wants it to be like a super cagey close game, but I don't know.
It's a tough one.
I think we were struggling last year with goal kicking and stuff as well, and I think that compounds it. So, $1 million question. I don't have $1 million, so I'm not answering it.
All right.
Sorry.
Next one comes from Bruns Chesslord.
Hi, gents. Just a quick observation, I suppose, for the pod. Just Will Ashcroft this year, I'm noting, has added a new kind of trick or string to his bow, you might say. When he's receiving a ball or getting a tap down or tap out, something like that, he is elevating his legs in the air so he catches the ball mid-flight. In that split seconds, it allows him to make a quick decision if he wants to hand pass. If he's under threat, he will kick the ball out of mid-air, very similar to his goal of the year. Not something I've seen any other player do before, and just wondering if anyone else had seen this.
What are your thoughts on that?
So he's doing the opposite of dropping the knees. What an absolute trailblazer.
He's doing that. He's also doing the opposite of one of the old footy adages of keep your feet at the same time as well. So just hearing that, I don't... Like, in theory and hearing that, I don't like it, because I suppose you haven't got a base to make a decision on, and you are forced to make a decision really quickly if you're in mid-flight. But I do remember...
You've got perfect balance when you're mid-flight.
I suppose. The other thing that I do remember, and most Lions fans will remember this, it'll be etched into their memory as a nightmare, and sorry for bringing it up, but obviously the handball that led to the De Goey goal last year in the grand final was Nick Dacos in midair. So, if you can produce something like that, I'll be happy.
I'm not happy with you. Not happy with you, boyo. Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think he's just the kind of person that's always looking for, like, not a competitive advantage, but looking to try and maximize his output.
Yeah.
And he's going to be trying to find little things, and I just think the way the game is played is kind of evolving, and we're kind of seeing it with some of the young players coming through a lot of clubs, not just the ones that are kind of like, the touted very, very good players, but because they're essentially playing a slightly, let's say, modified version of the game in juniors, they get to try all this stuff out without worrying about like getting their like head smashed off or getting, things like front on contact and stuff that are brought in and AFL players have to adapt. A lot of these young players haven't had to adapt to rules because they've been there through their junior career, so they're more intuitive for them. And that might be an example of that with Will, just being able to kind of like focus on different things, knowing there's an element of safety, of not being like tunneled maybe. And then obviously kicking goal of the year, doing that sort of insane shit probably works too. But yeah, it's definitely, I'll keep an eye on it. It's good pickup. I didn't notice it, not because it's not there, but more just I didn't realize it. Again, find me a bow with more than one string on it. I watched a lot of archery in the Olympics. One string per bow, and they were very good shooters.
I knew you'd love that one. All right, next one from Twitter from Lena. A pretty simple question when it gets boiled down. It says, goals versus behinds. Discuss. Well, goals good, behinds less good.
Yeah, I think so. That's pretty much it, isn't it? Death by 1,000 cuts? I don't know. It is funny. Did you notice that AFL made a hash and said we kicked the first 10 goals of the game? And it's like, well, technically, we actually kicked 9 goals, 6.
Yeah.
So, nice one, reporter or AI, whatever's doing the articles. Just live, I'm going to send you a little picture here just to see your immediate response to it.
Okay.
Live, this is happening live.
I like that. Just a really upset Charlie Dixon. See you, mate.
Yeah, that's possibly the ugliest picture ever.
Yeah, well, I doubt he'll be playing in his semi-final after his performance. All right, moving on. Ross, question for the pod. If GWS tags Zorko out of a game, what is the plan B? Could Wilmot play that sort of role? I suppose we touched on it as well. That's the insurance of having McKenna on standby, if not in the team. But no one can... It's weird. At the start of the year, no one can do what Kitty Coleman does. At the moment, no one can do what Dane Zorko does. Not to the same effect.
No, I think there would have to be an element of kind of like team allowance for it.
Yeah.
We've seen in the past, like guys like Saad, you know where it's coming from, and the ability to stop it can sometimes just leave other people open to just plop the ball up the field. So, I would be remiss to say that they won't put any work into him, but yeah, that just opens up Wilmot's run and carry, Starcevic's ball use, Froggy's as well, like all very good. So it'll probably happen, and hopefully Zorko can use his guile and nous of his 47 years to know how to break that tag.
Darren, what do we do with Hipwood going forward? Is he out of form? He's not as good as the club thought of him. His game hasn't looked the same since he's come back from his groin complaint. Now, we've touched on this as well, but yeah, he hasn't looked the same since he's come back from the groin. And there was chat earlier in the week in the training that he did slightly modified running and jogging and stuff when everyone else was doing drills. So I still think that groin's lingering around a little bit and affecting his fitness and his output. But we're staunch defenders of Hipwood here, and his work that he does do that isn't necessarily just measured in goals and behinds.
Yeah, I think when we saw the alternatives that we've had throughout the year, although I quite like Henry Smith, I think he's got potential to have a future with the club going forward. But it's just hard when you're not relying on... I think Hipwood's such a structural pillar within the club and within the forward structure. Structural pillar within the structure, that is a good sentence. He's got so much structure, it's got to be mentioned thrice. So I think he does a lot of work. It's just been he kicked the ball crap like 4 times in the space of 5 minutes. And when you only have 15 disposals, that's kind of what gets focused on. 2 goal assists. I think he does a lot of heavy lifting for some of the other forwards in terms of his running. I think, as I said, the more you look at him, the weirder it kind of gets. What's going on with his hair?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Strange looking fella. Very strange. But yeah, no, he goes nowhere. I think the alternatives speak for themselves. And if he's that kind of crook, and he's having that level of, let's say, contribution around the field, I'm happy with that. I'm okay with it. And I don't think it's indicative of like his groin going to be an issue for the next 7 years or whatever we've got in this contract. I like him. He's gone nowhere.
Yeah, and I think by the time he off-season rolls around, like he'll need the rest more than others. Julian, could the loss of Payne be a nail in the coffin for us? Potentially, Julian. Potentially.
I think we've probably got about 47 nails in that coffin at the moment. But I wonder how Alex Rance feels back in 2019.
Yeah, that's true. They had the whole year to adjust to that. We've our key defender stocks has been an absolute revolving door across this whole year. And
I think that's more than anything why I took it as such a affront that Harris didn't make the All-Australian.
Yeah,
it's because he's had no consistency and he's still performed extremely well. But I don't want to get bitter on this one.
What I will say is, yes, if Jack does in fact miss this weekend, at least Darragh Joyce has got a solid body of work behind him now, again, in the lead up to this semi-final, if we do have to call up Darragh again, and he had a great game in the VFL. So, yes, it's obviously, especially like body shape, manning up on Hogan, like you'd obviously rather have Jack Payne there, but we're going to get what we get.
I think Joyce's game against GWS was the first one he came back from his broken jaw.
I don't know. He may have missed because it was like it was literally like Harris has to play on Hogan.
Yeah, I don't entirely remember, but it's funny because we talk about the drop off not being as, let's say, as great with Joyce potentially being in the team and his body of work, but it was nice to see the upside to Payne, even if it was just for a half.
Yeah.
Because it just did a lot. Because sometimes when people are missing, one or two things happens. They're either the greatest player that ever lived, or it's sort of like, well, what did we need them for anyway? And it was nice to sort of get, a nice middling point of Payne being strong in the marking contest, and his kicking was fine, that sort of thing. So not a nail in the coffin, but a hurdle.
All right. MDT Lion. NG Stadium is 22 metres narrower than the Gabba, meaning that the contested possession, clearances and fast ball movement are going to win the game. Lions are a stronger at contested possession, clearances, and GWS have the edge on us fast and efficient ball movement. How can we capitalise on our strengths and stop the Giants from getting run-ons during the periods of the game when our energy drops? I guess that's where that kick mark game has to come into it, and just management of momentum.
What if we cover the ground in glue?
Sure.
Just Selly's PVA wood glue, just all over the field, just to slow them down a touch. Nice tar pit.
It's an option.
So that, but aside from that, the kick mark, or I think with a more narrow ground, you can afford to kind of drop someone back in the hole a bit more. So we could see someone like Berry drop back in, or Cal drop back in to defence. It was funny seeing the game. Carlton came in with Hipwood at fullback and Harris off the ground, and no wonder they kicked about 3 goals at the end.
All right, I'll go with Vince first, and then we'll have a bit. I don't know how much of a chat we want to have about this Mitch Robinson thing. Anyway, Vince, after the siren at the Sydney game, now you may remember Vince. He asked how many beers he was allowed to have before he went out for dinner. Yeah. Came back with the answer, I think was 6. He says, after the siren at the Sydney game at the Gabba, I said to 2 Swan supporters, I reckon I'll see you at the grand final. He says, will we see them at the grand final, and how many beers would I need at that game?
Sydney at the grand final. I think it's funny because this year, definitely statistical anomalies are a thing, because what was it, since World War II, no one's won having lost by more than 100 points.
Yeah.
Yet no one's won not being in the top 6 of the premiership window. So that leaves Hawthorn, us, and Port Adelaide.
Not just us, us and Hawthorn. Yeah.
But Port Adelaide aren't in the premiership window, but they're in the top 6 for defence.
Yeah.
Which I think is the caveat to that. So something weird is going on, and something unprecedented. But Sydney...
What about the Bulldogs' ridiculous profile? So ridiculous, that profile. They've got the best profile. They're going to come in, honestly.
Yeah, well, Cal Shadir scored more goals than their 3 boneheads up forward.
Yeah. No,
and took more contested marks. I think up till 3/4 time. Deer in the headlights, no more.
Very good.
Bambi has become a fully grown deer. I don't know. Damien Barrett can have that one.
We've got 2 games to get through before we even think about a grand final against Sydney. And Geelong in a prelim. I've seen that episode before.
Yeah, it happens every 2 fucking years. Literally like clockwork. 2020, 2022, 2024. It's like, can you stop?
Well, we've still got a Giants game to get through before we think that far ahead. I saw people over the weekend talking about us. It's like, oh no, we could get Hawthorn in the grand final. It's like, all right, well, first of all, let's get the Carlton game done, and then go from there. Thinking 3 games ahead. Yeah, we got GWS ahead. So it is a possibility, Vince. And how many beers? There is no rule for grand final day in beers. What I will say is, if it was like grand final day last year, I barely left my seat because I was too nervous to get a beer or even go to the toilet.
I think he had one before we left the house.
Yeah, and that was it.
That was it. And then I think your dad offered me one. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm so stressed. Hey.
Yeah.
And that was basically it. So, yeah, I'm not. I don't drink, so you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love a beer at the footy, but not that day.
It was too stressful. Very stressful. So yeah, 1 million.
Yes, as many as you like on grand final day. There are no rules. Just
don't punch on with anybody.
Yeah, you don't. Obviously, don't be a dick about it, and take whatever responsibilities you may have in your own life, like family or work or anything. That's obviously going to come first.
Is this a nice leading into the Mitch Robinson question?
Yeah, speaking about beers at the footy,
and family.
Yeah, continual buffhead. Is their Twitter handle. Thoughts on this? They've posted the screenshot of Mitch Robinson's tweet.
I thought you were talking about Mitch Robinson being a continual buffhead.
Well, that too. So I guess just our thoughts about the whole Mitch Robinson situation. Obviously, everyone saw the tweet. He deleted it the next morning after he'd probably sobered up and thought a little bit more about it. The article came out with, the clarification of what really happened, and then Mitch Robinson released his match day vlog video on his YouTube wearing the biggest sunnies the world's ever seen to cover his eyes. Look, I'm prepared to lock in. If I'm going to pick a side or whatever, I'm going to go with the official article released by, reputable sources rather than the tweet of one drunk individual who seems to think the world revolves around him.
Yeah, I think it's a bit rich talking about family for Mitch Robinson, to be perfectly honest.
There you go.
Because I think it became pretty clear quickly from eyewitnesses, which, make of that what you will. They weren't him and his family. It was his new girlfriend and a bunch of her friends. So if you want to talk about fake family, you've literally done it.
Sure. There you go.
I liked Mitch Robinson when he played, but
yeah, everyone
as far
did.
as I'm aware, it's sort of like, the dude wore a Carlton shirt underneath the Lions shirt to other games. It's like he's hedging his bets every way he can. So if Carlton had won, he probably would have tried to get to the Carlton rooms. So
well, yeah, he's looking for content for his YouTube channel, and like you, I love
YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I didn't even.
I love the way he played footy for us, and fantastic servant in the club, and really enjoyed watching him play. But yeah, I don't know.
That said, there's just a few things with him. His career was over before he came to the Lions, and I also didn't like the way that he verbalized his exit from the game.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about going into a final series and preliminary finals and stuff like that, it's like, sorry you didn't get to announce your retirement, but neither did Daniel Rich, and he didn't complain about it.
No.
Like, sorry. It's just, that's that.
All right. Well, that's it for questions for this week. Semi-final GWS Saturday, I believe. I think it is.
Saturday night, yeah. Did you hear the funny stat as well that Michael Voss is, I think in every game, Michael Voss has either been a coach or a captain. The Lions have won at the Gabba in finals.
Love that.
So he's extended that one.
I do like that.
Yeah, so good stat. Have you seen Carlton's form away interstate in finals? It is putrid, as you would say.
No, I haven't actually.
They have lost everywhere
Really?
since like the 90s. Yeah. Really good. I think, long time. It's good.
Sure.
So we saw potentially Mark of the Year and Goal of the Year. That won't be.
Yeah.
Is it stupid to ask your thoughts on this, or is it very much the case of just like
I understand why it's limited to the home and away season, but that being said, I like that Jeremy Cameron goal. That is better than the 3 nominated. The Heaney mark would at least be top 3. Jamie Elliott still has it for mine. Like, that's my mark of the year. But Heaney is obviously above that Dersma mark. And I would... arguable with the Bobby Hill mark. A lot of people prefer that Bobby Hill mark to the Jamie Elliott mark. But the Jamie Elliott mark's the mark of the year for me. But that Heaney mark's ridiculous. And Jack Buckley saving Heaney's life at the same time was equally as impressive.
It's like rivalry's dead, truly.
Yeah.
Spin him the other way. But maybe not. But should it not be then mark of the season or goal of the season?
Yeah.
Like, year kind of is. I'm pretty sure the literal term of a year is a calendar year.
That's true. Look, I don't know. I guess it doesn't sound as impressive though, does it?
No, but I mean, open it up, because do it on Brownlow night, and then if someone does it in the grand final, give them like 7 cars. I don't know. Do they still give them a car? Maybe they do this year. I don't know. But it just seems a little bit insincere, given that it's the best players playing against the best players in arguably more pressureful games.
Yeah.
So it's arguably harder to do than... none of it's easy to do, but you know what I mean?
I definitely understand the argument both sides. And they're just going to... Obviously, both of those people are going to... And I don't think it's going to face Jeremy Cameron one iota. But I think they're both going to have to live...
Give a shit.
No, they'll live with the fact that, hey, our season's still alive. We're both in a prelim. And, you know, we've done it. Like, Heaney's game on the weekend was out of this world, especially his last quarter. I think he would rather take, you know, a prelim final over Mark of the Year and give himself a chance at a premiership. So, but yeah, I definitely do understand the argument both sides, because they were both just silly. That Jeremy Cameron was just rude.
So the thing is, why wouldn't they announce it on All Australian Day?
Yeah,
where it's before the finals. Why would they then go and do it on Brownlow night? And I understand Brownlow's also home and away, whatever. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and I'd move the Brownlow night to the pre-finals bye as well, and give that weekend a little extra oomph as well. And rather than take away the attention from grand final week with Brownlow night, I would move that to pre-finals bye.
Well, how often do you get what happened last year with just people sitting around with a camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not exactly compelling, is it?
No.
I mean, it was definitely compelling because it was funny.
And I think this Brownlow night will probably be the most interesting one we've had in a while. Even though like no one expected Lockie to win it last year. Well, not no one, but I didn't expect Lockie to win it last year. But I think there's a genuine like top 3, 4, 5 that could walk away with the Brownlow this year, and I think it'll be compelling viewing in that respect.
It's a bit like a couple of years ago where I think there was... Yeah, they were doing heavy promos on, I think, 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
Might have been Neil, Bont, Cripps, and Butters, maybe?
Yeah, and maybe like Took Miller was sort of floating in and around there as well.
Yeah, too. Because I think Took won the Coaches Award.
Yeah, so I think it'll be the same names. Are going to be Bont, Dacos, Cripps, Neil, maybe Zach Merritt.
Grip won't be there.
One of the Sydney boys. Yeah, I don't know.
How many votes can you get just in home games?
Yeah. All right, other than that, the other semi-final that's happening is Hawthorn Port Adelaide, and look, Hawthorn were fun to watch. You know, apart from all their Gen Z stuff that, I mean, it's not my bag. I don't love all that sort of stuff, but...
Well, it's because you're not a Gen Zer.
No, but I do love the way they play footy. Like, I'll happily watch them play footy the way they're playing footy. The celebrations and the fucking look at me gear is not for me, but watching them play footy is obviously very, very tantalising stuff. And, you know, watching Port Adelaide go out in straight sets is also pretty tantalising, if I'm honest.
That's happened quite a lot of times. Would we say, like, a bit of a word to the Wizard? Is he trying to end the war between Gen Zers and millennials with his wizardry?
I don't know. Maybe. Sure.
Because apparently millennials fucking love Harry Potter.
Yeah, okay.
And Gen Zers apparently hate millennials about that. So with the Gen Z of the wizard being a wizard, surely there's got to be some sort of cosmic thing going on. I don't know.
Well, speaking as I guess technically I'm a millennial. I'm on the older side of millennial. There's only one wizard for me, and that's Jeff Farmer.
Yeah, he does love... I mean, so also on the... I'm not really on the older side of a millennial, am I? I don't know.
Well, yeah, you would be, because you're only, 1 or 2 years younger than I am.
No, Gen X goes to 1981. So I think we're on the... Not on the tail end, but millennials, I'm pretty sure, are 82 to 96.
Really? I thought it was...
So I think we're smack bang in the middle, yeah. I remember when I was probably about 8 years old, writing... When you could do a screensaver on the computer where you could write in text.
Nice, yeah.
It just said, Jeff Farmer punches people.
Sure.
It must have been after a game where he did that, and that was a resounding hilariosity amongst my family that, like, 8-year-old Paddy just wrote that as the screensaver.
Nice.
I probably spelled Jeff with a G, but here we are. So that's my little anecdote about the true wizard. Not quite the Wizard of Waverley, but the Wizard of Wonder. Yeah, I don't know. The
man.
wizard, is he trying to end the war? I don't know. I don't care. I didn't even know there was a war, to be perfectly frank.
Mate, always. All right, well, that'll wrap things up for this week. As I look at the countdown timer on the afl.com.au website, we are 5 days and 9 hours away from a semi-final against GWS at NG Stadium, 7:30 Saturday. Let this stress and the dread continue to build over the next few days, and fingers crossed we get the all clear for Jack Payne.
Have fun with it. What's the worst that can happen? We lose and then look forward to next year where all our players come back and it's amazing.
Now that's a glass half full. That's a glass half full I can get on board with.